We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hello, listeners. I'm sure you're clamoring to figure out what I had to eat most recently. As of right now, it's 4:21 p.m. I just had my second chai of the day, and right before that, I had lunch, and last night I made dinner, and it was what Sophia and I call Dig at Home. So for those unaware, there's a restaurant called Dig. One of the things you can get is chicken with sweet potatoes and broccoli and mac and cheese with barbecue sauce on the side. And all of these ingredients are ready for purchase at your local grocery store. So if you want to make your own Dig at Home, it's very easy. All we did was make broccoli in the air fryer, put some sweet potatoes, cut them up into wedges, and then put those in the oven. Sophia seasoned them, put a little brown sugar on them, which actually made it taste very good. And then, we have herbs de Provence seasoning that Sophia's mom got us, which I put on the chicken with some paprika, salt, pepper, etc. Then we put that into the air fryer. And then you've got your Dig at Home. Oh, and of course, there's the frozen mac and cheese, which I get, which you could make mac and cheese, but it's like when you're making all this other stuff, it's easier to just heat it up in the microwave. But yeah, you put it all together and it makes a pretty delicious dinner. And if you get chicken thighs, as we do, it comes in like packs of 4. And so usually what Sophia and I do is each of us have a chicken thigh for dinner, and then we save the rest for either another dinner or for a lunch. But we had it for lunch today, the remaining chicken thighs, because friend off the show, Molly Ahern, a friend from high school, is coming to our apartment. She lives in Rhode Island usually, and so we're going to go out to dinner at a local pizza bar place, which is sort of walking distance from my apartment. For those of you that have been listening, you know that I'm moving out of this apartment pretty soon, so I'm trying to enjoy any of the Highland Park things that I like, including, various restaurants and parks. But something you, the listener, might like would be if I just cut the bullshit and cued the intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week we are continuing our conversation with director Kane Parsons. That's right, folks. We got the director of the #1 movie in America. I think he just directed A24's highest grossing film of all time, their highest opening weekend of all time. So it's a pretty big deal that this is a movie we got the director for. But beyond that, he was very nice in our conversation, and I think gave some answers to some questions that I thought personally were very interesting. Granted, I wrote the questions, and this is my podcast, so I'm a little biased, but if you're here, you must be a little bit interested, But yeah, he goes deeper into his process. He talks a little bit about writing the score for the movie, or co-writing the score for the movie, and getting the movie ready for release. And it's a pretty cool chat, so I think I'm just gonna let you guys listen to it. You're shooting in real locations, that you've built. I believe it's like on 4 sound stages and 30,000 square feet. Can you talk about working on a soundstage that huge, especially given your previous experience working within the Backrooms is all purely virtual, from what I understand? Can you talk about the difference there for you and what it was like stepping onto the stage?
Yeah, I always like to look at what I do in Blender as very material and as physical. I like to be very physically centered in the way that I build and work. And a lot of this, I think, comes from the other series I was doing prior to this film, called The Oldest View, which involved like recreating piece by piece, like the entirety of this mall in Dallas, which no longer exists. And so there's a huge focus on like, specifications with scale and true to life visual information where, the final product, barring some micro details, like very, very small micro details, it looks pretty one-to-one to the real structure. And it's a big space. So I think like that, drive from having consistent blueprints and whatnot definitely helps bridge the gap between, I think just creating this feeling of Blender being a very legitimate way to realize physical spaces and talk to physical spaces and manifest them in reality, assuming you have the resources available to like pass this information off to a construction team and let it be interpreted. Jet lag, dude. It's been crazy. And I think that like it was thoroughly neat being able to step out onto the soundstage for the first time and walk around this place that I've been building in Blender for on one hand, it's like the environment, the general notion of the environment, something I've been doing for years. So that's really cool just to feel the texture of it. But like the specific set was being done like a month prior to pre-production, where I was like basically doing some shot listing and doing some concept art with what would become the final set design, just for like the pitch deck and stuff. So those materials existed, that file existed. I just kind of refined it when we went into prep and talked to Danny Burmett, our head of the art department, and just we figured out whether or not it'd be viable for me to just build how I normally do in Blender, make all of those creative choices up front in the software, and then pass that file off as sort of a three-dimensional blueprint. And it did. So I think that like I obviously not part of the construction team and they did a phenomenal job, but I would be checking in every day with, every hour pretty much with the art department. And we'd be making very specific choices around, when we start like going to a vendor and getting vinyl prints for the wallpaper, we would do like 20 sheets of it with slightly different tonalities. And then Jeremy Cox, the DP, and I would go do a camera test with it and, just get different skin tones in front of it and stuff and just like, gauge a few things before rolling it out to a full environment. And so, there's a lot of modular pieces like that we were sort of prepping and building ahead of time. And then when it was time for it to all fall into place, it had already sort of found a way to, there was a unity that was built ahead of time, I think, with each component of the set.
You use Blender obviously sort of as a pre-visualization tool. It's very helpful, I guess, for you to have sort of the 3D thing is sort of a way to prep. How prescriptive were you in terms of shot listing and storyboarding when you got on set? Were you trying to like, you have this very honed in plan that you're trying to execute?
I think it depends on the section of the film. There's certain areas that we knew for sure that we wanted frame perfect. Like, I mean, to the extent that we would shot list inside of Blender, and there's parts of the set design that we literally were modifying while we were shot listing simultaneously in the same file. So we would like adjust the set to create the frame we want, like to complement the frame that we were also setting up for. So there's certain moments for sure where that was a big driver, but then there's other places where, when we've got limited setup time for a single scene, a lot of the backrooms is covered just with like Steadicam, like following through and just having a few options within that. And I think that like the hope was that we had done a lot of the heavy lifting in curating the environment ahead of time. And through this sort of wide lens approach, we would have a lot of coverage that we could lean on in like not a fairly fast manner, but I think for sure there was a fluid sort of intuitive environment or that was sort of curated each day, where certainly there's a few shots that we knew for sure we wanted per scene. But then there's always like, I don't think there's a scene in the film where we didn't get excited about something that just came to life on the day and be sort of pushed to kind of shift to our agenda a little bit to capture it.
You have this sort of DIY background, obviously, with the series, but then also you're porting a lot of those that process into a much more collaborative version, I guess, of the same process. What for you was the hardest part to relinquish? And what was your favorite thing that, like, working on a set with all these different people, it's not just you having to figure it out? What was your favorite part of that?
I think it's, okay, what's the best way to say it? I think my favorite part is just how I think it's just being surprised in a very positive way by, seeing, all the hard work that goes into putting together a particular set that you don't see and you don't hear about until you step on there. And it's all you know, not magic, but it's from the outside. You get to really appreciate how hardworking and how much life is behind each each department, and you just really get to feel how in it everyone is. So I think there's certainly like a magic of surprise that I consistently enjoyed with just the art direction. Obviously, we had very much curated ahead of time, but still, just seeing it come to life in the actual set, stepping on there in the morning, was always one of my favorites. And just seeing how immersed in the project people were consistently, it was very fun to be engaging in that world with other people. And then I'd say that, like, a struggle, I would say the biggest struggle with the whole project creatively would probably have been traced back to, or like the place that I had the least creative control would have been the screenplay ultimately in the very beginning. I think certainly there was a rise in creative control that tracked all the way through the production. And when it came to directorial choices, that's fair game. And there's a lot we did there, and there's certainly a lot that we did to, like, the script was pretty fluid throughout the project, and sort of kept refining to better match to the consistency with my existing material and in that world, and my conventions, and like the stuff that I think was worth focusing on. But generally speaking, I think that would be the place that making clear that we are abiding by a sort of rule book set prior to the existence of this film as a standalone project that has no relationship to this internet property called the Backrooms, whether it's my version or just people's expectations for it in general. It's like there's not a lot of protection of that connection outside of my obsessiveness. So that was kind of like the main thing I had to kind of fight for continually every day, all the way through post, on just making sure that we're not doing anything that works or contradicts, works against, or harms the pillars of what people have always found engaging about Backrooms, in service of something maybe a little more traditional. I think that'd probably be it. Yeah.
How long was the shoot?
Was it 27 or 29 days? I think it was 27, and then we did 3 additional photography days in February.
Can you talk us through the post process on this? Were you like editing as you went along? Did you wait till the end?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Greg, our editor, was doing assemblies of each scene as we would shoot them, like within a day or so. Jeremy and I would always like get very excited when we were wrapping up the end of one day, so we could see what Greg had done for the previous day's shoots. And so we were able to sort of like, and he would slowly assemble them into, when the scenes lined up, we would get chunks of the film that we could sit down and watch while working. And so I think as we were shooting, everything just started to become more and more clear, like what we were really making, not what it felt like we were making, like what we were really making.
The effect of your cause.
Yeah. And so that was obviously helpful in just solidifying what was nice was there weren't really surprises. I think that, like, there's always the notion about, a movie's never as bad as, is it never as bad as the first assembly? What's the saying?
I don't know the saying, but what you just said is definitely true. The
first, it's like, it wasn't what I would want to put forward, but Greg's great, so they were actually pretty okay. And so when we wrapped that up, it was just the normal process of going through a director's cut, and really there were some fairly big swings that Greg and I made in that period before it went out to the rest of the producer team, and there were all ones that I think everyone across the board were in favor of, and certainly given that I elected to make them, I very much am in agreement that they were the right call creatively with the project. And I think that the whole thing has, I think, like, I don't remember exactly how many cuts we did following that point, but it was pretty much just, we finished shooting in August, like around August 15th. And from then until, I guess, when did we lock? I think we locked in February, like near the end of February. And so it was pretty, not grueling, but it was a nonstop sort of period of being in Vancouver, and it gets gray and it gets rainy, and the office we're working in is literally made out of recycled parts from the backroom set because Chris Ferguson thought it would be funny to wallpaper the office and put all the ceiling tiles from the set in there and bring some of the carpet in and stuff.
Living in your own personal hell.
Yeah, it's windowless, and so it's very, very insulated and very, like, it's a small little group, which is great. I do really, really enjoy it up there, and I really, really love everyone I worked with. But we just kind of, were heads down working on that, and I was, I'd have my laptop in the editing room with Greg, and I'd be working on art direction pieces, like, VFX inserts and stuff, temp VFX. Ed's just down the hall, so Ed Douglas, VFX. So we'd always be, we'd have our VFX reviews and we'd be sending files back and forth. So it was, I felt as though I was trying to like consistently involve myself in as many parts of the project as I could to sort of maintain that overall, direction.
I mean, everything you're telling me sounds incredibly overwhelming, and especially given that you're sort of, I don't know that if it qualifies as IP necessarily, but in a way it is IP. Like there's a fan base there's an expectation, I guess, from you to deliver something. And, it's obviously your first film, so there's also that expectation I'm sure you're putting on yourself. Did you allow yourself to feel that pressure? And if so, how did you handle it throughout production and post and sort of, if you locked in February, I mean, it's been a long time coming, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, we locked in. We actually delivered the film like the day before our press tour started, and we premiered the film. So technically, there's been no downtime at all ever. But yeah, like I think I felt a great deal of stress. Certainly, it peaked at certain moments here and there. Near like pivotal, we would get notes on cuts and whatnot, and like so there would be like choke points where it really become paramount that we a certain creative choice be held, like the line be held, or we make an alternate decision, stuff like that in a few places. But I think generally speaking, my pressure comes more from caring pretty deeply about this project as a holistic serialized piece over the years. I knew where it was going. Like I know the broader arc of it. I know the world of it. I really care about the integrity of that, and I hate retcons, and I hate breaking continuity, and I hate just sort of forgetting the initial purpose of a piece of art that plans to travel for a number of years. And so it was just kind of holding on to all of that stuff. And I think that the sort of assurance in that was that people who were the fans, if you want to refer to the fans of my specific interpretation of the Backrooms, they were there for all of the things I was just describing. And so really holding the line on that front and making sure we're evolving that in an interesting way would be sort of, protecting my expectation for the project along with theirs. So I think there was like, I want to get it right. Like I care immensely about it. And so, there's a lot of like 21-hour work days and whatnot, like just making sure that we were not, there's a lot of times where something was almost right, but making it just right would require like an extra, like, okay, we're not sleeping at all tonight. And I would usually, I wouldn't be able to handle not doing that. So it was certainly a pretty intense period, but I was doing it with really great people who were all there for that level of obsession, and I found ways to enjoy it.
I mean, it's sort of all encompassing, and you even co-composed the score. Was that always the plan, or was that something?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So can you talk about and you co-compose it? Can you talk about that collaboration and how that happened? I
mean, I compose all the score in the YouTube series, and I do music very, it's like, the main thing I do outside of film. It's like I try to do a song a day usually. Like I've built a very specific sonic landscape with Backrooms online, and, people have a lot of expectations for, like some of my more core fans will recognize a lot of specific sort of musical symbolism and like motif networking and stuff that happens in there that needed to be continued into this film so as to like bring the whole world together in a consistent manner. But I think that like given time and given the practicality and given that I've never worked in a slightly more professional pipeline like this, working with Ado Van Bremen, we worked together on sort of filling up. We would do iterations where we would like, I think what we have currently is a mix of like he'd do a track, I do a track, he'd do a track, and then like the majority of the tracks are somewhere in between where it's either like half and half, or like so much of what we have is like a blend of stems that we kind of made, put in a bucket, and then I with Eugenio, our sound designer, we would sort of make those executive decisions, me and Eugenio in the room under the guise of it being sound design pretty much. So we then like, after processing all those stems with like, whatever effects, because there is a line between sound design and score, obviously, and we want to make sure that the score, when we go to release it separately, reflects what's actually in the film. So for that, we're sort of going and taking all of the, the processed SFX stems and bringing those back into the final track mix, and kind of that's what we've been doing literally this past week while also on our press tour. So it's been a little crazy, but no, generally like it's like mostly synth based, mostly VST synth based on my end. We had a few hardware synths in Ado Studio, but largely it's that. And we've got some bass clarinet mixed in some spots that we do some strange sounds to, or strange processing.
Sort of starting to wrap out. You're in the process of delivering the film now. There's marketing everywhere for it. Were you involved in like methodology of how this was going to be rolled out at all?
I was given input or the opportunity for input a decent bit. I think the hard part is that there is sort of the openness of, yes, we can try all these things, but also there will be no time to do any of these things, as I've, been truly wall to wall inundated with like press, requirements and whatnot for the past couple weeks. So this has unfortunately not been like a great chance to do more than set some like general press concepts in motion. But most things go through me at this point.
I mean, Scary Movie 6 is already parroting you, so that's got to feel good. You're in a new class of filmmaker already.
It's neat. It's been neat to see how it's it's flown with the wind a little bit. It's cool.
All right, so you've finally reached our Big Kahuna final question, and the Big Kahuna final question is just, what's the last great movie you watched? It can be a first-time watch or a rewatch, but it can't just be good. It has to be great.
Oh, okay. Just the last one. I'm going to get overly picky with this, but
Everyone does.
It's recent, and it's obviously a remake or an adaptation of Save the Green Planet, but I do really like Begonia. I do really,
it's great.
Really like Begonia.
We got to speak with the composer. It was
he's great.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, well, Kane, thanks so much for coming on. This has been Kane Parsons, director of Backrooms, his feature directorial debut. And as of release, it should be out in theaters, so make sure you go check it out. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Whoa, guys, this was a big deal. I don't know how many of you remembered this video, but after Obama passed, I believe, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if you will, there's a video of Joe Biden caught sort of on a hot mic saying to Obama, this is a big fucking deal. And that's sort of how I feel talking to you, the listener. Guys, this was a big effing deal. Okay? If you like this interview, please make sure to give us a good review on all your major podcasting platforms, because that's where you can also listen to our episodes. We're on YouTube now, guys. We're not just on your audio-only platforms, though Spotify, I guess, now also has video. So really, what is anything except radio, But make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. It's our two social media platforms. We're gonna see. Maybe we'll branch out. And thank you so much to producer Bash for making it all happen. We uploaded some fun social media videos in anticipation of both part 1 and part 2 of this interview, and we hope you all liked it a lot. As always, we're going to be uploading episodes every Sunday, 5 a.m. EST or ET. I don't know. Is it daylight savings time right now, or is it not? I don't really know, Send me a message if you know, because it's all about that pod engagement. Anyways, guys, it was good sharing this conversation with you, and I will catch you guys next week.